Today I'm going to talk about creating mobile-first responsive projects using the ready-to-go slides available in the Assets window inside Adobe Captivate. Don't worry if you don't have a lot of experience designing responsive design. Today I'm going to show you how you can rapidly take your ready-to-go slides and customize them to suit your needs. Let's get started. So we're starting with the exercise file that I've provided you called Service Orientation using Ready-to-Go Slides, and this would be included as part of the downloads that you can get for this particular session today. Using the Assets window, I've selected a series of ready-to-go slides that fit this particular design that I have in mind. I will show you, of course, that if you wish to add a knowledge check slide instead of a full question slide, with this project already open, you can just click on the slides icon on your toolbar and select knowledge check slide. And this will allow you to select what type of knowledge check you wish to create. In this case, I'm using a multiple choice. Click OK. And then, of course, I'm ready to customize this as I see fit. I'm going to go ahead and delete that now. And we'll just take a quick look at what's happened here with the other slides. So I've already gone in and given it a new title and a new subtitle, and our Begin Course button is here. On the second slide, again, I've provided my own title and some information about the scenario that we're talking about in this mobile first project. And remember, with mobile first, you don't want 3 hours worth of e-learning and expect that learners are going to consume that on their smartphones. This is a micro learning lesson where we're covering one topic and we're teaching one idea, and that learners can quickly do this on their smartphone and then, continue on their day. Perhaps they're riding the commuter train on their way to work, or perhaps they're in between meetings and have a few minutes to kill. That's the perfect time for mobile first training. And of course, here I've added a copy of the button from the first slide because I need a continue button on this particular slide. The multiple choice question is a little bit more customized here. So what I've done is I've added a third answer, which happens to be my correct answer. I've removed all of the feedback captions, which you can do from the quiz panel by simply unchecking the items that you don't need on this slide. I've rearranged the fluid boxes so that the fluid box that previously was used for those captions is minimized. And I've done another thing with this particular slide when it comes to setting up the layout here, and I'll show you that in a second. But first, what I wanted to illustrate to you is that this slide takes advantage of a feature called Advanced Answer Options. So if you select one of your answers and click on the Options tab, you'll see the opportunity to turn on an Advanced Answer option. What this does is it allows you to perform a specific action depending on which answer has been selected. So in this case here, when learners select either answer 1 or answer 2, they're brought to slide number 4, which are distractor choices. They are wrong choices. If they choose option 3, they're brought to slide 5, and that's the correct path for this particular branching scenario. Let me reset this slide and just show you a couple of things that I did to make it work for mobile. So if I reset the master slide, everything gets put back to its original position. So you can see here that if I was to view this on a mobile preview, a couple things are happening. Number one, these captions really, they're not serving me any purpose here since I'm taking learners to other slides anyway. So I'm going to take care of that in a moment. But you'll also see that the actual answers are spilling out into my scrap area, which means that your learners won't see them, and they're not set to be an appropriate height. So let's first of all go back to desktop view and fix a couple of things. I'm going to go to the quiz panel now and uncheck correct and incomplete, and make sure that there is no failure messages and get rid of all of that stuff there. I'm going to select one of my fluid boxes and then select the parent fluid box so that I see these selection handles to resize these fluid boxes. All I'm going to do is just give more room to those answers by moving that bottom fluid box down, the submit button fluid box, and the fluid box previously reserved for the captions to be nice and small here at the bottom. Now you'll notice that I have lots of extra room that I can now take advantage of. So let's resize this again down to a mobile view. And what I like to do with knowledge check or regular question slides is to edit these directly from my position panel. So if I go to my position panel and consider the fact that I have 3 answers, inside this fluid box, they can take up each 33% of the total amount. So let's change these settings for the last one first. So it can be 66.6% from the top because it's the bottom third. I don't need it to be indented, so I'm going to say 0 there. The width of this particular object in the fluid box shouldn't be 120.7%. Instead, we'll just make it 100%. And the height, of course, again, it's 1/3 of this fluid box. We'll say 33.3 and hit enter. I'm going to do the same thing to the other objects here. So from the top, this can be 33.3, 0 from the left, 100% wide, and 33.3 tall. Let's do the first one now. So 0 from the top, 0 from the left, 100% wide, and 33.3% tall. Now if we go over to our Properties Inspector and select Style, I'm going to align these to the top because now there are multiple lines and I want the radio button to be at the top and aligned with the first line of text. So I'll do the same thing for the others, and of course now you can see that looks a lot better. One thing to remember about mobile responsive design is that in your Properties Inspector, you have a minimum font size. The default is 14, but on a slide like this, you might want to take that a little bit lower. The font scaling will work, and in cases where you see text that's currently being cut off, don't worry too much, that's just happening in edit mode. When you publish this out or preview it on your mobile device, it will shrink the font size down to be an appropriate size. To help you with that though, you can select that minimum font size to be a little bit smaller and allow it to accommodate more text if you need to. So as I indicated, these particular answers use the advanced answer option. So this will take you to slide number 4, as will this one, and the third one will take you to slide number 5. These are all very similar. In fact, they use the same image overlay slide, which is a good combination of showing you an image and providing you some context with some text. So I have the scenario proceed. In this case here, this is a wrong choice. Learners can then click on the retry button, be brought back to the multiple choice slide, and change their answer and try something else. When they get it correct, they'll be brought to this slide where we're going to change its appearance, but also the text will indicate that, you know, Josie and Dave worked well together. And then on the following slide, where we have a continue button, on the following slide, Josie and Dave give their presentation and management approves the project. So again, a little bit of a scenario here we're presenting to them. Next, we have a click to reveal. To customize these, a lot of the work is done for you. So, you know, having the various actions behind all of the buttons is already there. What essentially these buttons will do is change their own appearance, but also change the multi-state objects that you see here on your slide. So in the case of introduction, when I click on response time, it will change that to response time. And this text down here will also change this to whichever text that you need to display, depending on what's been clicked here. To edit these objects, the easiest way to do so is to select each object and go into State View and simply provide all the alternative text that you need. So introduction is the normal state, but if the user clicks response time, we're going to have it update to say response time. Or if they click on listen, it's going to say listen, and so on. Similarly with the text content here, you're going to have a little message about each. So the first message is just letting users know here are some key points about how you can use customer service for both your external and internal customers. And depending on what they click on over here, they'll see different text messages appear on their slide. I've added a continue button that wasn't there before. Again, I simply copied and pasted that from the first slide. And then we have another 50-50 slide with our cutout character. And it's just a little summary or conclusion. And again, we're going to change its appearance to be more appropriate than what we have here. This is obviously a very appropriate template that you would use if you were teaching people on a construction site or some kind of trades that, a yellow reflector vest would be commonly used. And of course, the colors are very technical, they're very industrial, and we're going to change that. So let's go back up to slide number 1. The first thing that I like to do when I'm building any e-learning project is to decide upon the branding that's occurring. In this case here, I'm going to bring in the first object that is in the resource package that you've been provided. If you click on the media icon and select image, navigate to where you've expanded that particular package and select color palette. I'm going to click on open, and this is going to show up in the middle of my slide. And I'm going to do a few things to it here because I want this available throughout my entire project. I don't want the learners to see it. It's just there for my own reference. And I'm going to place it outside of my slide so that, the learners don't see it. And I'm also going to resize this a little bit here. So I'm holding down the Shift key on my keyboard. You can't see that. But I'm just going to resize this so that, it doesn't take up so much space there. The last thing I want to do to this object is go to my timing panel and change it to rest of project. And you can select place object on top, but it probably won't matter because it's over in the side here. So now what happens is that color palette is available from any of the slides that I'm working on, and then I can therefore customize certain items based on that color. So in this case here, I'm going to start to customize this content here. I've changed my mind about the title of this course. I'm going to call it Customer Service, and I'm going to ask myself a question here, or ask the learner a question: who is the customer? Now, I'm going to do a few things to this slide. Obviously, again, as I mentioned, this looks like it's for a work site, a construction site. So we're going to start to change it to match what we're actually going to be doing here. First thing I'm going to do is select this Begin button, and we're going to customize that using the color palette that we've just brought in here. So I'm going to click on my multi-state view here, starting with the normal color. And here's how you can use that color palette to your advantage. I can use the fill color, which is currently set to black, select the eyedropper tool, and select one of the colors from my color palette. With any button, of course, there's a rollover and a down state. So to give your learners a visual cue that this is a clickable object, we're going to have a rollover effect. So I'm going to select the rollover effect from here. I'm going to choose a color from my palette here, this purple color here. Next, I'm going to select the down state. I'm going to choose my eyedropper tool and use this salmon pink color as a down state here. Now you might be thinking to yourself, but Paul, that's a whole bunch of steps and you've got half a dozen objects that might need those same colors throughout your project. Don't worry, again, this is about rapidly developing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return back to the normal state, and you can see here that this particular style object is being used throughout the course. This little plus icon indicates that I've made some changes to this instance of that button. If I use this little tiny menu located to the right of where it says style name here, I can save changes to the existing style. And what that does for you, it allows you to be able to reuse that style moving forward, but it also commits all the changes that you've made to all the other instances used throughout your project. So let's save those changes to the existing style. Wait a moment and we'll just navigate to some of the other slides. So you can see now my continue button on slide 2 is now blue. And of course, presumably it also has the rollover and the down states as well. There is one button that won't get changed because of the way that Adobe Captivate works, and that's your submit button on this multiple choice knowledge check here. So I'm going to change that as well. I'm going to have to use those same techniques over again, but I'll be able to save those as settings moving forward as well. So we'll do the rollover state. And the down state here. And if you intend to use the quiz style for multiple slides, you can also make those changes to all the other related objects. Again, save changes to existing style, and that becomes the default moving forward. Let's go back to slide 1 and let's begin to customize this particular slide. So I have in mind a certain look and feel for this course. So the very first thing I can do is select my fluid boxes, and let's take a look at what makes up these fluid boxes or this particular slide here. So you can see that the parent level fluid box, that's this one up here, contains an image fill that you can see here, and that's that image of the construction workers with hard hats here. I'm going to replace that with a choice of my own. So I'm going to click on the folder icon next to custom image, and we'll import in a new image. And again, from the resources that I've supplied you, you'll find this image here, which is an image that I got from Adobe Stock. And I'm going to open that, and that's now going to fill that background there. Similarly, I'm going to select the lower of these two child level fluid boxes. That's this one here. And it has an image which consists of this orange item here. I'm going to change this from an image fill to a solid fill. And I'm going to change it to white. And I'm going to set it to be about 80%. So now we have an entirely new looking slide, even though it's based on that construction-oriented slide that we started with. You could do some other things to customize this if you wish. One of the things that I might do is, instead of having the objects on this section left aligned, maybe I'm going to go center aligned for these objects here. And that brings my begin button to the middle. So I'm pretty happy with that particular layout. I might want customer service to be centered as well. So I'm just going to center that item there, and we'll do the same thing for this object here. And the reason I'm thinking about that is for other screen sizes. It might look more appropriate if it's there. I'm not real happy with the font. I have another font in mind. And we can select, first of all, this course title object here. And I'm going to select actually an Adobe font that I have in mind. You can see Adobe fonts have their own section. Make sure you're logged into your Adobe account to see the fonts that you have available. And of course, you can click on the font icon located over here to select fonts that currently aren't in your setup. So I'm going to choose Oswald. And I'm going to choose regular, and I'm going to reduce that to 40 points. Similarly, I'm going to select who is the customer, and we're also going to choose Oswald, regular, and 30 points is appropriate here. a best practice that I like to use is when I've changed something that is associated with an object style, I like to update that by saving changes to the existing style. So every other slide where I might use this particular object style will also be updated as well, and that will save me time. Similarly, I'm going to do the same thing for the subtitle object, save changes to existing style, and I think this slide is done. Oh wait, let's do the button as well. So I'm going to go Oswald, and in this case we'll stick with regular just to keep it simple. And again, I can save changes to the existing style. Let's move on to slide number 2. Now this slide uses a slightly different style for the title. Let's duplicate the work that we've done from the title page, and we'll go Oswald, regular, 40. And I'm going to center this within the object shape as well. We're also going to change the color to match one of our branding choices here using the eyedropper tool. You see how easy that is now. Similarly, this text here will need to be updated to the Oswald text, so we'll go and make that change as well here. In this case here, I'm going to change that to regular, but I think what I'm going to do is change the spacing, the line spacing to 1.4, just so that it has a little room to breathe, because it's kind of small and close together. In this case here, we do have a subtitle item here, so let's save changes to the existing style and do the same thing for this title here. I'm going to select this fluid box. You can see that there's a parent fluid box and 2 child level fluid boxes. The first one is the left hand portion of the slide, and the other is the right hand portion of the slide. And you can see that the background is this orange and yellow image here. So we're going to change that out, and we're going to select a new image that includes the image of our characters Dave and Josie. So I'm going to import them, and that's this image here, Adobe Stock 303872941. We'll open that, and of course that's going to fill the screen. And you can see clearly we don't need this cutout character anymore, so I'm going to select him and press delete. Now there is a placeholder object for him, so I'm going to press delete again to get rid of the placeholder as well. What I think this slide needs though is a little contrast between our background and our foreground here. So for this fluid box, I'm going to change the color to white, and 80% looks pretty good to me. I'm going to change the alignment to alignment center, and I think what we'll use in this case here is just to, for the sake of the desktop users, again, they're not our primary customer in this case here, but I'm just going to resize this so that we can see a nice clear image. Let's take a look at the view for mobile users. Well, that doesn't look right. What we have is an issue with our image fill. It's currently set to stretch. So we're going to uncheck stretch and choose tile, and you can make the tile to be any point that you wish. You can experiment with what works well for each type of image and the layout that you're looking for here. So if I look at this now, what's going to happen? We're going to see, oh, well, they're kind of cut off there. So let's choose a different tiling method. Perhaps what we should use is top right. No, that's not right. How about center? That looks good. So now let's move on to our knowledge check slide. And I think in this case here, I don't want to emphasize the fact that this is a multiple choice question, but rather let's focus on the fact that this is a branching scenario. So I'm going to literally call it scenario. So again, let's return to mobile view and take a look at what we've got here. I'm going to select one of my fluid boxes to bring up the select fluid box window, and we'll just take a look at what our choices are here. So the title and the question stem are divided up into 2 fluid boxes. If you select the parent of those two fluid boxes, which is what I've done here, I can resize this and give a little bit more real estate to my question stem, which I think is appropriate. If we start with the parent fluid box and kind of work our way down, we'll be able to see how these different objects are being filled out. So in this case here, this black background is something we can change, and let's choose something from our color palette. Let's make that blue. Let's select the topmost fluid box where again we have that orange and yellow reflector vest color. And I think what we'll do in this case is just switch that to a solid color, in this case white. And I even think that the title for this particular slide, we need to apply our Oswald font. And let's choose regular. And again, we can choose our color from our color palette, and that looks nice. I still think that maybe we could go a little bit smaller on this title here. So let's just bring that up even more there. That looks good. Before I move away from the title, let's save the changes to the existing style. And let's select the question stem now. And I will type in Oswald for my font. Again, regular is appropriate here. And I think 20 is probably a better font size in this case here. And I think I'll align it to the top. I'm also going to add some margins, change the margin settings a little bit too. So I think that works well. Let's take a look at desktop view. I'm going to give the question answers a little more space here. You may have to adjust your settings here to compensate for that. Again, don't forget to set up your advanced answer option to jump to the particular slides in question, but I think we have something that works well for this particular layout here. Let's move on to slide number 4. So in this case here, this is the distractor slide. This is where we see the feedback of what happens, the consequences of the actions of choosing one of the distractors on the previous slide here. So let's change a few things over here. First thing I'm noticing, of course, is my retry button didn't seem to take the changes that we made. And sometimes this happens in Captivate. Usually what I'll do is I'll just momentarily change the style name to something else and then back to the style in question. And of course, now you see my font looks appropriate here. My font is already set up here, and we're just going to change a few things here. So this fluid box that contains, again, that orange and white, we're going to change that to a solid fill, and we're going to make it white, and I think 80%, so we can show a little bit of the image in the background showing through. So this works well. Let's switch back to this view here just for a moment and replace this image. Now this is the next day when Josie and Dave are giving their presentation, but it doesn't go so well. So I'm going to select the parent fluid box, which contains the image, and we're going to use the folder icon to import that replacement image. In this case here, it's the first Adobe stock image that you see here. Now, when I chose these images, I did crop and resize them so that they are appropriate for Adobe Captivate. I resized them to be no larger than 1024 by 627, which is the default size for this project. I also considered, where the characters were, so that for the different layouts, obviously Dave here, I still want him visible on mobile view. And of course, we've selected to center align him in the background. And of course, it looks very appropriate both on desktop and mobile. But remember, of course, with this layout, you're seeing some of the text there being cut off. Again, don't worry about that too much because again, we've set our minimum font size to be 10 pixels. And even though this font is currently 24, it will scale down as needed to fit those mobile views. Our retry button, in this case, has an action associated with it to jump back to slide 3, because this is a wrong answer, and we're going to give them a chance to retry and make a different choice. Here's the correct answer. So again, using the same layout, but we're going to change its appearance. First of all, again, I have to reset this style object here. I'm just going to select a different object momentarily and return it so that we have our nice continue button. We're also going to change the background of this fluid box also to white. So we'll change it to solid fill, white, and I'll make it 80% so our background image shows through. Let's select the parent fluid box, and in this case here we'll choose the fill style and the folder to select a new image, which I'll now import. In this case here, it's going to be this image here where Dave and Josie are working together to finish their project. We'll click open. And again, you might think to yourself, that seems to be a lot of wasted space above. Again, I cropped it, keeping in mind that we would be seeing it on different views as well. And the next day when they present their project, again, we'll make some changes here. Got to fix our continue button again. Again, the workaround for that is just to select a different style name momentarily and return it to the objects that's there. I do that because sometimes the reset style isn't always available. Now we'll select the fluid box, the orange background. Once again, we'll change that to solid fill, white, and 80%. And this time we'll select the parent fluid box and change that to a different image, which will emphasize the success of their meeting the following day here. Let's take a look at on desktop and mobile. Looks good. And our continue button here is simply going to go to the next slide. So we're almost done. Actually, we're real close to finishing. Here's our customer service review. This is our click to reveal. We're going to make some customized changes here. So I'm going to select the parent level fluid box. We'll start with that. And I could just change this to a color, but I think it might be kind of neat to have sort of that office image in the background there. So let's select the folder again. Don't worry about importing something more than once, because of course the advantage of Adobe Captivate is that it recognizes that you've brought in 2 copies of the same image and only uses up that much space in your Captivate library. So I'm going to click on open. And so now I have a little bit of the office environment in the background here. Now the first item here is response time. And in this case here, you'll see that there is a script running under execute advanced actions. And there's one for each one of these buttons. As long as you don't delete any objects that are part of that interaction, you don't need to worry about this script. You don't need to worry about the advanced action at all. So I'm going to close this and we're just going to ignore that for the time being. Let's first of all start to customize our choices here. So the first thing we're going to do is select the parent level fluid box. We've already changed the background image to be one of our images before, but let's just go through these fluid boxes one by one. Now this is currently black, 0 opacity, nothing to worry about there. This is an image. I'm going to change this to the color white. And we're going to have it, like many of our other fluid boxes, set it to be 80%. The customer service review title, let's go ahead and change that to Oswald and regular. And I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to select the blue color from my color palette there. I'm going back to the parent fluid box. I think I might need to give more room to the click to reveal. So I'm wasting quite a bit of space up top there. And then if I select the first child level fluid box, which is this whole area up here, I can return more of that space to my title, which I think might be more appropriate when we get down to mobile view. As you can see here, I think it does make sense. So let's change some of these objects here. We have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items here. Again, we want to be consistent and use our Oswald font. In this case here, I'm going to change that from being a image fill, which is in the background of that object. It's a shape with a background image. I'm going to change that to a solid color. And I'm going to change the fill style to be perhaps this light salmon color here. Now this is a multi-state object as well. So when it's active, it turns orange. So I'm going to change the orange as well to one of our other colors here. Let's select the active state from the object state drop down here. And instead of an image, we'll choose solid color. And I'm going to select the blue, but we'll change the font color to white. Now, the key thing here is to save that object style so you don't have to do a whole bunch of rework to the remaining 4 buttons. So let's save changes to the existing style. There. So now I have a new style of button that when you press on one of those items, it will turn blue and the text will become white. And again, I only had to do that one time and then save it as my object style. So as you can see, we have our buttons next to those items here. Let's change those as well. Again, we only need to change one of them and then save the changes to our object style. So the first thing I'm going to do is, first of all, select Oswald as my font. I'm going to use light in this case here, and I'm going to bump up the font size to 20 points. Now in this case here, the default color, I actually am going to use white as the selected default color. So in this case, I think what I'm going to do is choose the salmon pink color here for the default state or the normal state. The rollover, let's change that to be the purple color that you see here. The down state, let's select our blue color, and then active, we'll leave that white. So I'm going to save changes to my existing style, and now all my buttons have been updated accordingly. The fluid boxes for these buttons here have stretch to fit selected for the horizontal align area, but not for the vertical alignment area. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to select stretch to fit for all of these so that they just fill out the space that we have and make best use of it. So I'm just selecting each fluid box and making sure that stretch to fit is set for all of them. So now we can customize our click to reveal content itself. The title, introduction, we're going to change that to Oswald. I'm going to go light as well. 30 looks good. I think in this case, its alignment looks good here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the style name menu and select Save Changes to Existing Style. And you just want to double check that all of your multi-states look okay as well, and they do. Let's select the content body itself. Also change that to Oswald. And I think we'll just go light with this one here, and I'm going to bump up that font size to 20. And like before, save changes to my existing style. So my continue button, of course, looks a little bit off. So again, like I've mentioned before, you sometimes just need to change the style to something else and then back to original style to get those changes there. So that looks pretty good. Now we're on our conclusion slide. So almost all the work is done here. And what we're going to do in this case is that we're going to get rid of our cutout character because we have an image with Josie in the background here. I'm going to select the parent fluid box, and we're going to find that. Now in this case here, if I import this image in again, it's okay, because of course Captivate knows that I've brought it in before and it won't make an extra copy. We'll select the second of our two fluid boxes here, and we'll change that fill color to white and 80%. And let's just resize a couple of objects here. The text probably needs more room than the title, but obviously the button can't be that small, so let's bring it back to an appropriate size here. And like before, I'm going to center align this content, and we'll go middle alignment is fine in this case here. And our exit button is not appropriate, so we'll again switch to a different object style temporarily, and then return it back to what it should be, and that's the OSHA button. There we go. This particular slide on desktop, again, we're designing for mobile first. So, you know, we can check out what mobile looks like, spend some time doing that. I've obviously chosen the wrong fill style here. Let's uncheck stretch, better. But, you know, I still want a design to look good for desktop as well. So let's select our parent, and using the selection handle there, resize this to be a little bit to the right there. So the last thing you can do just to further enhance your mobile ready responsive design course is add some audio narration. Now I've prepared some audio examples using a very interesting text-to-speech technology called Well Said Labs, and you can check that out at wellsaidlabs.com. This allows you to create narration using different genders, different voices, and come up with something totally unique. So I've prepared some audio narration for most of the slides here. So to add slide audio to this particular slide, select the slide in question from your film strip and click on the media icon in your toolbar. Select audio and then navigate over to where those resources have been saved for you. In this case here, we've got slide 1 audio.wave. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. You'll see this notification show the slide for the same amount of time as the length of the slide audio. Obviously, these slides are just the default length, but of course, audio will make them longer. Click OK, and you can see that on the timeline. If we increase the timeline, you'll be able to see that this audio object is now on your timeline. What I like to do as well, just as precaution, is to just push out the audio to about the 1 second mark and then roll it back to about the ½ a second mark. And that way there's a slight pause before your narration begins and a space at the end of the slide as well. So I'm going to repeat this process for the entire number of slides where those slide audio items exist, and then we'll preview our project and see how it looks. Some quick start projects have a pause on enter, and unfortunately this will prevent any audio that you have on the slide from running. So one of the things that you'll need to do for each of your slides where you've added audio narration is to replace the pause with no action or continue. Either of the two will work fine. So now let's go ahead and preview this project. It's ready to go. We'll click on preview, and in this case choose project. I'm going to preview this in mobile view so we can see how well this looks on a smartphone.
Welcome to customer service, where we answer, who is the customer? Click to begin button to get started. Josie and Dave have been preparing for a presentation with management. She stops by Dave's desk on her way out of the office to make sure he's ready for tomorrow. Dave asks if she could stay late and help him with some extra slides for the presentation. How should she respond? The next day, Josie and Dave give their presentation, but management felt the presentation was missing critical information. She realizes that if she helped Dave improve the presentation, they could have avoided this embarrassing situation. Help Josie make another decision. When Josie asked Dave why the extra information was relevant, Dave was able to illustrate that it would address concerns management might have about the proposal. They worked together for another 30 minutes and got the presentation done. Josie and Dave gave their presentation, and management approved their project. Let's review. Here are some key points about customer service that you can use to service your customers, both external and internal. Remember, if we all treat our colleagues like customers, we go a long way toward providing exceptional service for both our external and internal customers, making our company a great place to work, where we don't just help ourselves, but each other as well.
If you thought this video was useful, please like and share with your colleagues. If you need help with your next e-learning project, hire me. My focus is to create effective e-learning that achieves your business goals. Visit my website at captivateteacher.com and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel.